Hello guys, so in this tutorial I want to walk you through how to set up your payload CMS application with AWS S3. So add an AWS S3 adapter to your payload application so that you can store your media resources such as pictures and all of that resources onto your an AWS S3 bucket. So if you have tried to do that and you go to the documentation, to the payload documentation, up to understand is a little bit I won't call it a complete documentation to say the least. So we have that here. So when you go to the documentation here, you will see that. So give it a second. So here is it. We have the payload S3 adapter installation documentation here, and that's it. That's pretty much it. When you get to the payload application, that's all. And this is actually not helpful, so this is going to be a guide that will help you quickly do this, and it's not going to take that long, I promise. So let's get into it. So one of the first things that we need to do is to set up the AWS S3 buckets that we'll be using for this. And so just logging into your AWS S3 AWS console, and then here I'll create a new S3 bucket. So I'll click on create bucket here. I'll select the general purpose. I'll provide the bucket with a name, so I'll just say CMS bucket, something like this. Wow, that's not how to spell a bucket. So CMS bucket, I hope this will pass, and then we will select ACLS enabled. We will unblock all public access. Also we'll give object rights writer. We'll give we'll select object ownership. We'll select object writer here, and then we also acknowledge that we want to make these changes to the block public access. And if you want to enable versioning, you can do that here. Actually, I've done a similar video on how to connect to do something similar to this on Strapi, and if you have not seen it, or if you need it, then you can just get onto my look through my videos and you get that. And also don't forget to give this video a like and also to subscribe. So let's get into this. So now the next thing that we need to do is to create a bucket. Hopefully that will go through. No, the bucket name was rejected, so just add hopefully that will pass. Let's try again. So this time the bucket name was accepted. Let's give it a couple of seconds, and there we go. So we have the bucket here. So I'll select that bucket, and here we need to allow permissions so that we can send we need to still allow a lot more additional permissions so that we can send the resources from our application to this bucket. So I'll go to permissions here, and then I'll move down to where I see bucket policies. I'll edit the current bucket policies, of which we currently don't have any, and then I'll paste in one of these here. You can find the documentation. I'll add it. You can also find it on I'll provide a link to all of these. So here I just have to change this with a bucket name, which in this case is CMS BKT. So so replace this. I think that's where the error is coming from. Yeah, so with this you are done. So all we have to do is to save the changes, and with this you can now send resources, or like be able to access your resources outside of AWS. So now one of the next thing that we need to do is to go back, and then we'll create a new IAM account or user, and then we can use the IAM user's secret key and to be able to connect to that account. So what we need to do is to click here, create a new user. We'll name that user AWS S3 user. So here I'll click on next, and then here I'll attach a policy directly. So among the permissions options, I'll select attach a policy directly, and I'll type in S3, and I'll select S3 full access, this one right here, and then I'll move to the bottom and click on next. So from here I can move on. I think I'm fine with all of this configuration. So when I click on this, you realize that it has created a new user, that IAM user that we have just created. And then here we still need to add to now generate the access key that we'll be using to connect to the payload application. So here I'll click on generate access key, and then among the option here I have application running outside of AWS. That's the one that I'm going to select. I'll click on next, and then I can provide a description tag here, AWS access payload user, something like this, and then I'll create the access key. Now, so once we have the access key, we can go ahead and download the CVS file, because we'll be needing it later on. And also I have just started a brand new payload application, and so that payload application is running here, and I've not made any changes, and that's why you can see that is looking completely blank. So let me quickly I'll seed it with the default seeding files, that the default configuration files that payload comes along with. So this is taking a couple of seconds because this is the first time it's generating that page, so it's going to take a while. And so here I can quickly just create the administrator user here. So I'll enter my email, I'll enter a password, do the same thing, and then I'll provide a name. So for this administrator, just provide a name, and then I'll click on create. So here on the dashboard, I'll quickly seed my database with the seed file that payload provides. This is also going to take a couple of seconds, but we are almost done, so just let's give it a couple of seconds. So it's done. So with this, when we go back to our home page, we should start seeing the changes. So here we go. Here is the default payload. How when you see it, payloads application, this is how it appears. So now from here, what we want to do is that I'll move up here, because I currently all of these images, they are stored locally, and you can see that here you see that when payload was trying to access them, he accessed them from API media file hero 1. So they are all local, so they are all in my directory locally. So what this tutorial is meant to help you with is to show you how you can actually connect these to an S3 bucket, so that all of these images can then get into that. I know I'm repeating myself here, but hopefully that will help. So from here, what we have to do is we already have everything set. So one of the first things we need to do is to go into the payload config file, if I can find it. So here we go, and then here we need to add our the adapter. So you can even see they left a space for you to add a storage adapter here. So to add a storage adapter, when you visit the documentation here, you realize that they will ask you to install a package first. So I'm going to install that package here. So this will also take a couple of seconds. So while that package is installing, so we'll have to update our config file with this S3 storage file example that they provide here. So I'm going to copy everything that is inside of the array here. So I'll copy all of this and just go back here and then paste that in here. So essentially what that will do is yeah, it's going to throw a couple of error. So in this case I don't really need to add a prefix to my media. So the prefixes will help so that you can easily identify what kind of media file you can group them by the prefix later on. But in this case I'm not really bothered by that, so I'm going to remove that. And then I'm waiting for the storage, the S3 storage for the package to install. It's going to take a couple of seconds because I think my internet is not really that good. So let's give it a couple of seconds. But then whilst that is happening, we will have to make sure that we have all of these env variables in our .env file. So I'll open that to the side and then I'll start quickly copying them. So we have an S3 bucket. So that's going to be the bucket name that we need to connect to in this case, and that is going to be the bucket name that we created out here. So I have the access key and then the secret key, so I think I should do justice to those before I move. So I have this here, and then the secret key. Okay, so and then finally I have the S3 region here. All right, so what I want to do here is to quickly define those variable. I think I think my package is done installing, so let me import it here. I think I have to do that manually. So let's go here and quickly import that package. So there we go. Still getting an error somewhere. Okay, so here I'm getting a number of type validation errors, so I can quickly bypass that by setting need to an empty string when it cannot be found in the env file. So in this case I'm definitely going to add it. So what I'll do here is, the first thing to do is to make sure that I get the access key. So I'll copy the access key, I'll paste that in here. But this is, I think the naming convention here is kind of weird. We have access key ID and then secret access key. So I think the second one is the secret key. So for the secret access key, we'll copy that also from and paste that in there. So we'll move here, and at the same time I have to select the region and the AWS bucket, the S3 bucket that I'm going to use. So here, yeah, so here's my bucket, and I can go to property to get the region. So in this case I'm using the EU North region. I have to make sure that there's no space, and then the bucket name is CMS bucket. I can get that here, so I can paste that in there. So with this I'm set for I think I'm done. I'm actually done with almost the entire configuration, with just one small exception, because if I save this at this point, and that's what is not in the documentation, when you save this and you save this. So when this tries to reload, it's going to reload the env file, right? So initially it was complaining after the installation, and then let's give it a couple of seconds. Okay, so I think have to visit administrators page one more time. Okay, so let's restart this. So here I'm trying to restart the application after having installed the packages and see where the error is coming from. So in this case, you see that, well, it has successfully restarted, but then when it tried to access a number of is getting an error, and I'm going to show you what is happening in a couple of seconds. So when we go to pages, the home page is what is the home page, which is what we have here as a template home page, is what we see here, is what is the page here. So the image that is on the home page, which used to be image hero-1, you can see that right now is no more there, because I think because we have added the AWS S3 bucket as the storage point instead of the local one. So here I can try to upload a new image. So let's say I'm uploading this image that I got from the web. So I'll save that. So once it goes through that way, it means that it has successfully, the image has been successfully uploaded. But when you look at the link of the image, you realize that it's still the local link, and when you try to visit it, you realize that it's still providing you with the local link instead of the AWS S3 link. So to fix that, what we need to do is to make sure that in the config file that is right here, we need to remove how the links are processed, or how the URL for each of the images are processed, right? Are generated. So we'll have to move into where we have the media collection to make that change, because the images are as they have a static directory where the images are stored is on the media collection. So when you remove the static directory directly like this, and then you save it, you still get the same error. So once you remove that, you have to disable local storage, and there is that option right here. So just go ahead with disable local storage, and we set that to true. I think that's it. Well, forgot to put a comma at the end. And so there is one more change that we need to make, and it has to do with the admin thumbnail. So here we'll remove what is there, and I'll replace it with this. So initially we'll check and see if the document has a file name, and then we'll set a dynamic AWS S3 route to be able to access the thumbnail from that point. And so when we save this, and we hope for everything to recompile, we wait for this. So I'll refresh this page so that I can allow it to recompile. So when this comes, and then I try to now access the image, so you can see now that the image is now using the AWS link instead of the local one, and you can see that here. And also when we go to the home page, which is here, and then we refresh that home page. We now have the AWS the image from AWS. So there we go, you have the changes showing up on your website. And when we visit the AWS storage bucket, you realize that we also have, so here's the AWS bucket. When we go back and then we select that bucket, you see that we have all of those images that we uploaded inside. So that was it, guys. This was supposed to be a very short video, and I hope you enjoy it. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.